Welcome back to N+1 days of MvvmCross. It's been a long sunny bank holiday weekend here in the UK. The first holiday weekend which has had sunshine like this for 6 years. So apologies for the break, but I had to celebrate. And today, getting back into it, what I'd like to do in this intro, n=10, is to just do some SQLite within an MvvmCross project. And because I'm going to do quite a lot of code, I'm only going to do this on one platform today, but everything you see should work on all platforms. So let's dive into it and do a new project. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, as ever, a new portable class library project. And this is going to be N-10 kittens DB, and so it's going to be called kittens db.core, and we'll create it. Same story as ever, but not the Xbox. Mango and above, monotouch, Android, Xamarin twins. Get rid of the class 1, bring in the new get references for MvvmCross. And then after we brought those in, I'm also going to look down here and find the SQLite plugin and pull that in as well. And at this stage we've got our normal kind of setup, so we build, and you can see the app, has its normal thing in it, and the first view model has its normal empty content in it as well. So let us just add in some services, which is going to be for our SQLite. And to do this I am going to use a code snippet, and I'll explain what it does as I go along. So let me just pull it in. I'll just call it class 1 and then let Resharp rename it. So this code snippet, and I hope you don't mind me using the code snippet just to go a little bit faster, but I will try and talk it through. It's called kittens. And there are several sections to this code snippet. So the first one, just to pull it in, is just this type which is for our ORM. And you can see it's a class called kitten. It's just set up with public properties, so there's nothing else in there. It's almost like a struct, but it isn't this class. And you can see that the very first one is an ID, and it's marked with primary key and also increment. So for anybody who knows about SQL, that should be pretty obvious what that's going to do. It's going to start at 0 or 1, and it's going to go up every time you insert something into the database. And it's the field that's used to look up entries. We've then got a string which is name, we've got an integer for its price, and we've got a string for its image URL. And that is the basis for what our ORM use, our object relational model, is it, ORM, to store things in the database. The next thing we have in this class is in this file is a kitten genesis service, and this is just a helper for us, which is going to create new kittens. And you can see we've got an implementation for it here, and this implementation just uses random things to get hold of a name, get hold of an image URL using placekittens, a website to generate images, and just as a random price. So you can see the rest of that class is all just about randomly creating kittens. So hopefully there's nothing in that code above that's going to confuse or distract you. We then actually get into our repository, our data service. And we've got an interface for our data service, and that interface has some insert, update, and delete methods, and normal CRUD. It's got a count property, so you can get hold of how many kittens you've got in your database. And then it's got kind of this querying function called kitten matcher. And this returns a list of kittens, and it does it using a filter. Yeah, so you can see the interface. Hopefully you can understand that straightforwardly enough. And then the last class in the snippet is actually what implements that data service. And so as we start looking through this, what we find is we've got a class data service which implements iDataService. Within it, it's got a property called a connection, which is a SQLite connection. So that's the thing that's actually going to talk to the database code on each platform. And we've then got our SQLite connection factory, and that's passed into us using dependency injection. So it'll come straight from the plugin, whichever native plugin is loaded, and it'll be passed into data service. And during that, what will happen is we'll get connection. During the constructor, what will happen is we'll use the factory to create a database using this file name. And if the file already exists, obviously it loads rather than creates it. And then the very first thing we do within that connection is we call create table, but create table doesn't actually always create. What it does is it sees whether or not the table already exists. And if it already exists, it uses that. Otherwise, it creates it. And then below we actually have the implementation for each of our methods. So that's it in terms of construction. But then when you actually want to use it, so here's our select statement within our SQL. And you can see all we've got is some link here. So we use our connection. We look for the table called kitten on it. We then do an order by price increasing. We then do a where filter on the name, making sure it contains the filter. And we then do to list. So hopefully you can see how that all fits together as a query. There's nothing too complicated there. And if you're used to using link to SQL or entity framework or any of those things, then hopefully that will be very straightforward to you. Beyond that, we then have the insert, update, and delete methods. And all of those look very straightforward. There's an insert, there's an update, a delete. Those are all kind of passed straight through there. And they use the objects themselves. If you didn't want to use these object holders, for example on delete, you could instead use the generic form of this method. So there's a delete with angle brackets called kitten. And you could pass in the ID. So you know, if it was number 12, you wanted to delete primary key 12, you could use that form instead. But obviously, the simplest way at the moment is just to do that. And then finally we have our count, and this again uses link. And you can see all it does is underscore connection.table kitten, and then it uses the link count, which will convert at runtime into a SQL count. So that's it. That's our back end. Yeah. And then what we'd like to do is just use it. So let's go across to our view models and edit them a bit. So at the moment we've got this first view model. And let me rename it because I'd rather... no, I'll leave it as first view model, it'll be fine. What I'd like to do in this first view model is, I would like to provide, let me use the, what I'll do is I'll provide a filtering method. So let's do a property called string, and that property is going to be underscore filter, and filter. So you can see that's there. And let me just set that initially to an empty string. Oops. That way. So you can see that that's just a normal MvvM property. And then what I'd like to do is I'd like to have a list. So let's do that. And this is going to be a list of kitten. Oops. List of kitten. And this is kittens. Kittens. So this is going to be a filter and a list of kittens. And then what I'd like to do is I'd like to have a command. Use my command helper. And so this first command is going to be a apply filter command. Apply filter. And so when that command happens, what we'd like to do here is we would like to be apply filter get new list of kittens. But obviously we also would like to actually add some kittens, and we'd probably like to display the number of kittens there. So let's add some more properties and commands. So there's a property which is going to be an int. And this int is going to be the kitten count, or total count. Yeah. And then we would also like to have a command which will allow us to add some kittens. So let's do that as well. Let's add a command to cmvx, and it's going to be add. Should probably call it insert, just so it's a just so it matches the names all the way through this answer. So it's going to be an insert command. So we've got these this property here. Right, so now we need to hook all this together. You can see we put lots of stuff in the first view model, but we actually now want to use it. So let's add in our class as a whole, we want to get hold of that data service. So this guy, this data service, which implements iData service. So let's add that to our first view model as well. So we're going to have a private read-only iData service, and that's got data service. And obviously we'd like to have that injected, so we'll add a constructor parameter for that, and that should work. And now we've got a data service. We also would quite like a way of, because of this insert, we'd like to get hold of them and generate them. So let's also add one of those private read-only kitten genesis service, which is the thing that uses random numbers to generate kittens. So let's add the kitten genesis service. And now we've added those two things, we should be able to be up and running. So first of all, our do insert. So when we do our do insert, we'd like a kitten created. So we ask for our kitten genesis service dot create new kitten, and we could pass in, some helper here. So let me just add that as well. Let me add a count. Private int count added 0. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to increment a private field here. This is just giving me a hint to make sure that we actually know what's going on. Count added plus plus. Count added to string. So that's just going to append something to the end of the kitten name, just so we know what's been added. And then I'm going to add it to the data service, and to do that I just do data service.insert and kitten. Yeah. And then what I should probably do, because I'm doing this, is refresh the count. So let's do it. Refresh data count. And to refresh the data count, all I do is my own variable, which is called total count, equals data service dot count. Now, obviously, in a bigger architecture or application, you might want to do this updating by some sort of messaging. But for this simple demo, which is already quite convoluted, I'm just going to do it using this kind of hook in here. So this isn't good structural coding of putting all this in the view model, but hopefully it makes sense in terms of just this application. Right, so that's our insert. The next thing we want to do is actually this filter method. And so what we need to do for this is we would like to use our data service to get hold of the kittens which match the filter. So that's that. And we'd like to apply that back to our kittens description. Right, so we've done quite a lot. Yeah, I don't need to comment in there anymore. I think that's quite straightforward what it does. I'm going to get that comment. So we've done quite a lot in this class, and perhaps it's not ordered as we normally order a class as we were doing it, with a good structure. But hopefully you can see, it's quite straightforward there that we've used our data service underneath, and that actually it's also quite testable if we wanted to remove it and use a mock of some description for our data service and for our Genesis service. So now we've done that, let's add a client to this guy. And the client I'm going to use now, Android or Windows Phone. Let me use Android for this one. So I'm going to create a Android project, and I think I called these kittens.db. Carry on that principle. Kittens.db.droid. I'll click OK. And that'll go off and generate our UI. And then what I'd like to do, I don't need to know about the betas because I can't install them anyway. What I'd like to do is I could delete this activity, get it out of the way. Nobody needs that boilerplate one. And I'll delete the main because that's just in the way. And then what I'll do is I'll add references to my core project. Done. And then I'll also add references to these NuGet packages we want to use. So I'll use MvvmCross. What I'd like to do is I'd like to install the core, and then I'd like to install the SQLite. And then because I'm going to display images, and if you've seen the previous ones, you'll know all about this, I'm also going to install the file plugin, and I'm going to install the download cache plugin. Now, if you weren't using images, you wouldn't need those two. SQLite doesn't need either of those to actually work. But because I'm using images, I want to have those two. So you can see we've inserted quite a lot of DLLs into this project now, assemblies. But this should build, I hope. off, it's going on building. Right, so build succeeded, but obviously we haven't put the UI in. So our UI is this first view, which obviously is very, very basic at the moment. What we'd like to do is edit the layout for it. So let's open this guy up. Well, we use the designer for once. This should be a good experience. Let's see how it goes. It's loading the layout. Right, so what we've got in here at the moment, if we look at it, is we've got an edit text and a text view. So we actually do want the edit text somewhere up there, and we do want a text view. So let's rearrange this a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'll provide myself with a little hint here. Android colon text equals count. And this is going to be bound to our field called total count. Yeah, so our very first line at the top of the screen here is going to say the number of things in our count. We then are going to have a edit for our filter. Let's do it. It's going to be our filter. And this is Fiddler. This is going to be our filter. Filter. Can't type filter today. And then we would like to have a button for our apply filter. So I can do this actually. Let me see if I can drag these in from the toolbox. Designer, toolbox. And so I'm looking for a button. And I'll drag one button in there. And I'll drag another button in here. And so the first one of those buttons here is the add kitten button. And that's going to be bound, we've decided. We'd like to bind the click on the add button into the insert command on the view model, so we do that. Yeah, and the second one down here, this is going to be the apply filter, and that's bound in the view model, if I remember the name I chose for it, to the apply filter command. So those are our buttons. And then what we need to do really is to have a list at the bottom here. So let's do that. Let's get hold of our list. Okay, so you could use a list view here, and you can see that list view has been added. But actually, because we want a bound list view, then what we're going to do is we're going to edit that a bit. So our list view is actually going to be an MvvmCross list view, because we want it to be data binding, and the standard list view doesn't support that. And then what we'll do is we will have a list view, and this is going to be a item source we're binding on it, and this is to our list of kittens. So hopefully that's all straightforward enough. I think I can see a couple of bugs that I've written already, but we'll come back to those. And then let's just also, because we're going to use the very most basic code here, let's also add in a, just to start with, a toString on our kitten class. And this is going to return string.format. And we'll just put together the kitten's name and its price. Start. Okay, so we've put together lots of data binding there. Let's just see whether or not that works. And let's run this guy up. So if I choose the emulator to run this in, I'm using a 2.3, whatever it's called, Gingerbread, was it 2.3 emulator for this? So hopefully that will build and deploy. And as long as I haven't typed anything wrong. So you can see when we first create our database, we get this set up. And if we add a kitten, then hopefully you can see that the count has come back. So we add a couple. Now if we get those back, you can see these are the two that have been added with their prices. If we add a third, then you can see that we get 3 back. And if we then decide to apply a filter, so let's just do a T in there and apply it, then hopefully you can see only the kitten with T in there is actually in the filter. And if we delete that filter again, Oops, I don't seem to have the ability to delete because the keyboard has come up the wrong size. Let's see whether I can pull it back. Let's see. No, so the keyboard has decided to be too big, so I don't know how to delete things. Select all. I don't have any hardware support, so I can't actually clear the filter in this emulator. Sorry about that, my emulator has decided my screen size is wrong. But what we should be able to do is we should be able to use that normally. Can I use the hardware keyboard? No. So we can certainly do that. Oh, it's really annoying now. Okay, so we can't actually use this filter at the moment because of the emulator, thanks Android. But you can hopefully see that we can carry on adding kittens and our count goes up. And there should be a way somewhere. Yeah, my screen settings are very wrong, unless... so I can delete, I just need to know where the keys are. Because it's just drawing them wrong. So you can see here we can apply that filter with nothing in there, and now we'll get all 6 back in our lists. So that's a very simple binding done. Let me just improve my view and view model a bit more. So let's come back to our project. And let's over here, let's tidy up our classes a bit. We'll use resharper to move types into matching files. That's done. And then what I'd quite like to do is in my view model, there are a few other things I'd like to do. So first of all, when I first create the database, I'd like to update total count. And also I'd like to apply filter. So that's just going to make sure that when I first start up, my data is consistent. And that should make it a bit neater to look at. But what I then also would like to do is in my view, I would like to, in my view, I would like to improve the list. So if I go back to here, what I'd like to do is I would like to create a list item template. So let me copy first view and let's make it into a item_kitten display. And what I'll do for this is I obviously don't want that in there. So what I'll do is for each kitten, I will have a horizontal display. And there are other ways to do it other than using linear layout, but I'm just in a bit of a hurry, so I'm going to keep going. And for this, what I'd like to use is I'd like to use a image, so an MVX image view, and I will give it a fixed height and width. So let's give it 100 dp. And I'd then obviously like to bind its image URL to the kitten's image URL. So let's just do that. Image URL and image URL. So that's going to be our image view. And then next to that, I would like to just put the text view of his name, and I won't worry about price or anything else for now. So in here, I will just have a text view of name. And I'll just use that as a hint. So if I save that, then hopefully when I look at the design for this individual item, you can see I've got an image view there and a name. You could probably improve a bit. You could add some margin to this guy. Let me see if I can do that. So I could add some gravity to him perhaps as well. Just do A to Z. So gravity, I will set his gravity to be center vertical. Oops, gravity. And let me also see if it's layout gravity that might make a bit of a difference. Okay, that's definitely made a difference, but I'm going to get rid of it because I don't know quite what it's done. But let me add some margin to it, and so I'm just going to add some margin, which is going to 10 dp. And you can see that kind of improves us a little bit anyway about how our layout's going to work. So that's going to be our list kitten, and just to, our item kitten, and just to use it, all we have to do is go down to our list. We will use it by having local colon MvvmCross item template equals, and then this is where you need to remember the funny syntax for Android, which is all lowercase at layout / item underscore kitten. That's the name of the file. Item underscore kitten. And then when we load this up, we should get a bit more functionality. Unfortunately, that emulator is still going to be broken, but we'll keep going. So let's load this up. Now, one thing you're going to notice is that unfortunately, as part of the monodroid / Xamarin.Android deploy process, it wipes the previous database, so that's not particularly good for debugging. So when we load up, you'll see there's nothing in the database again. But we can get around that in a moment, and I'll show you how. So we're going to add 4 kittens, apply the filter, you can see they come back, and you can see this time we've got images, so it's much nicer. There's some kittens for us. And again, if we just pick a letter, so let's see who's got R in their name. Oh, where do you reckon R is? About there somewhere. There's an R, and we apply the filter, and we'll pull it down. Then hopefully you can see only Butler, Fern, and Frankenstein are in there. If we get rid of it, no, there's our delete, and apply, then we get all 4 back in our display again. Holly's back. So obviously we can add a lot more, and then we can filter again, and we'll see how many come back. I'd have to find all these keys. Apologies about this Android keyboard. It's quite funny, really. Somewhere there's a delete button. And so R's about there somewhere. Now we apply, and you can see, people like Holly without any R's have disappeared, but the other 4 are still there. So as I say, at the moment you can't really, see the persistence of the database. So let me hit the menu button. No, hit the home button, and then what I should be able to do somewhere is if I go to settings, spare parts maybe. No, I need to find applications somehow. We go to menu and manage apps. So if I kill the app altogether, so somewhere on the app we should have running. Here's our running apps. I have to remember the old Android. And you can see there's nothing running at the moment. So we are relying at the moment on data storage because there's nothing being run and nothing being cached. So now if I go back to here, and unfortunately, so this one is probably called kittens. Let's find it. There's an awful lot of things installed. If we run kittensdb, okay, so let's full stop it, make sure it's not running. Then hopefully, if I'm very lucky, kittensdb.droid I can run. So if I run it up now, and hopefully you'll see when I've run it up, there is 9, and the filter's working and all that sort of thing when you first run it up. So hopefully you can see that, and again I can do the same thing. So if I add 10, so I'm up to 12 items now. If I get rid of them, and then I go to that menu, manage apps, I just would like kittens. So just to show you the same process again, to prove that we are persisting that data, kittensdb.droid, full stop. See, I closed it. I can then go home. I can go to my apps list, and somewhere on this apps list I can find kittensdb.droid. It will start up from fresh, and you can see I've got my 12 kittens. So I can do that, and I could repeat the process across other operating systems really quickly. Maybe I should just do it for one, just to show you. So let me do it for Windows Phone, but I'm not going to do it for every single platform, because I think that would take too long here. So let me add a new project, Windows Phone. We'll just do a normal app. This is called kittensdb.phone. Hit OK. We're going to use Mango as ever. We're then going to add a reference to our core project. Done. And we'll then add a reference to the NuGet packages we want. So again, MvvmCross. And we want MvvmCross itself. And we'd like SQLite, please. So we ask for SQLite, and that comes and installs. Having done that, there are a couple of small things we need to tweak, as you know, from this file. So we need to add this for application launching. Add it. and we would like to add some setup. So let's add some setup. So that should now at least build for us, and we've got a first view set up, but it hasn't got any content in it. So let's actually try, just for once, let's try and cut and paste our AXML across to our XAML. So let's find that AXML for first view. Here it is. And let's see how well or badly it translates into XAML. So we'll take this text view here and do it. So here's our AXML. This will make the XAML editor squeal a lot. So if we take a look at this, we've got a text view. We know a text view is a text box. We don't really need to set the layout width or the layout height. We're just going to leave that to be default. Text size is going to translate to font size. So we'll make that quite big, 40. Do we need any text? Well, we're just going to use binding on text. So let's do it. Text equals, and then the binding is here. So we're just going to do that. So total count, binding. And that's there. So that's one thing done. Then we've got a button. So a button is a button, that's good. It's got text, and the button text is the content in there. We're not going to worry about layout width or height, we'll let it sort it out. ID we don't need. We do need to bind this, click, and so the equivalent is a command, so we'll just do that. So I hope it's not too confusing trying to do this. Not one of the things I normally do. But you can see we're just translating the AXML to XAML. Next up is an edit text. So I actually got this wrong earlier about this. This should have been a text block. And this one, to an edit text, is a text box. And again, we're not going to worry about height or width. Font size we can use from earlier is 40. And then the text is going to be the filter. So we do text equals. Now, one thing to watch out for here is the two-way problem with Windows Phone and XAML in general. So what you have to do is binding filter mode equals two-way. If you forget the two-way, then you'll discover you don't update things correctly. And then we get to button text layout. Okay, so we keep going. So the next button is going to have content of apply filter. And we don't worry about the width and the height, and we do want to bind the content, the command, sorry. So command equals, and this is going to be binding. Oops, got my spacing wrong there. So we just do that, sorry about the resharper. And then we have a list view underneath. So this is going to be a list box. And this list box, we want so remove this below. We don't worry about the height, the width, the fill parent. We'll just let those sort those themselves out. What we do want is in this list, we would like item source equal to, and this is going to be the binding, the kittens. Binding kittens. And then what we need to do is the item template. To start with, again, let's not worry about an item template. Let's just put it in like that. Obviously, I don't think this is going to work too well in terms of it being a grid and a stack panel either. But to start with, let's just do that. So we should now be able to just set this to make sure it uses the correct emulator, and we should be able to run it up. I don't think the emulator is running at current, so it might take a few seconds. We should be able to run up the phone. And when it's run up and when it's installed, hopefully we should have a semi-working app just by porting that XAML across. Let's see. Windows Phone emulator is doing a complete OS boot. Let's see it chugging away in the background. Almost there. Right, so it's booted, so now it's installing the app, and hopefully it'll now launch the app. Yep, there it goes. So obviously we haven't got much of a splash screen, but hopefully we should be able to now do add kittens. And if we apply a filter like A, then we get pause. If we remove that filter and we apply it, then we get all 4 of them back, and obviously we can add more, and we should get more of them. And just to prove that's persistent again, if we exit this, so we could exit it, for example, from the debugger, guarantees it's not running, and obviously if we hit back, you can see there's nothing running. So we should now, within here, be able to go to kittensdb, and when it loads up, hopefully we should see all 7 of them. Obviously we could also tidy up the XAML a little bit more, so we could, for example, here, add a data template. So let's just do that. Listbox.item template, and in there we want a data template, and in the data template we're going to have a stack panel which is going to be horizontal. So again, we could have copied this across from the AXML version as well, but we'll just do it because I know what I'm doing. And this guy's source is bound to, I think it's called image URL. And then after that, we've got the text block, and the text is going to be bound to the name of the kitten. And let's just make it a little bit bigger. And again, you can use the designer to make this prettier if you need to. But this one's font size is going to be 30, so yeah, that should do. And then when we run it up this time, and with the Windows Phone debugger, unless you do a complete rebuild, and you should get persistence of data across boots. So hopefully you can see when you start up, we get these guys. And obviously there is a problem with the layout at the moment, so the list isn't working. But you can see we do get our filter. So let me fix that as well, just to prove that it can be done. And what I'll do is in this grid, I will just create 2 rows. Grid.row definitions. Height equals star, auto, and then the second one I'll do a star. And then what we should be able to do is this one we can leave in the first grid, and we'll just take our list box outside that stack panel. But we'll also make the images a bit smaller so you can actually see them. Height equals 40, width equals 40. And then this list box we want it to be in grid.row equals 1. So that's gone quite quickly. If you don't understand it, then please go back to some of the earlier exercises where we looked a bit more at XAML, and hopefully you'll pick that up quite straightforwardly. But here now we get a better UI, and you can see there are our kittens, and that now scrolls correctly. We add a whole load more of them, then you can see, hopefully, if we apply the filter, we get them back. Yeah. And if we then query for, we only want ones containing L, we only have those containing it. So you can see, hopefully, you know, I've gone through quite quickly, but hopefully you can see what we've done in this exercise is we started with a portable class library, we imported MvvmCross, and we imported the SQLite plugin. Yeah, nothing particularly unusual there. And then we generated some services. So you can see our data service and data service, which used the SQLite connection factory, and then we used those with our view module. Right, there's someone at the door here, so I'm going to have to go. But I hope that that gives you a quick overview of using SQLite in at least 2 platforms, even though I didn't do it for all 4. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow.